Hello everyone, and welcome to Waffle Flower Crafts. It's Shannon here, and in today's video I'll be showing you a couple ways to utilize your scraps. Today's scraps are actually from last week's Watch It Wednesday video. I used this A2 nested dome die set to create 5 cards. That video is called Inlay Rainbow Domes. And today I'm going to use those scraps with these Waffle Flower products. First up is the Hooray stamp set. Really cute. One of my favorite Waffle Flower stamp sets. This is the Hooray matching dies. This is the Congrats stamp set. I'm going to use that heart balloon there, as well as the Congrats matching die set. So here are some of the scraps from last week's project, as well as a few of the cards that I created. I did an inlay die cutting technique, and I ended up cutting out of white cardstock and colored cardstock several of the nested dome dies. So I have a lot of different scrap leftovers. A lot of the white arches, as well as complete colored arches. And I'm going to start with the complete colored arches. This is actually from the smallest dome in that A2 nested dome die set. I'm going to start with these, and I'm going to put them kind of in rainbow order here. And I'm going to repeat this process as I've done the first 5. I'm going to just repeat the same rainbow order. And now I'm going to kind of rotate them in. I want the tail end of the domes to be sticking outward. And then I'm going to take this blue dome and tuck it underneath that pink dome. So it kind of creates this circle. And now I'm just going to kind of fine tune this circle, kind of adjust it so that the spacing or the amount of each color dome is about equal, about the same. So I'm just kind of fine tuning here. It does not have to be absolutely perfect, but it's a really simple technique to kind of just twirl those around and stack the bottom on under the top, and you have this really neat kind of swirl. So now I'm going to adhere this actually onto my card panel. So I went ahead and cut an A2 card panel, and now I'm just using some Tombow Mono liquid adhesive here, and I'm just going to put little dots over pretty much the center, basically where the card panel is going to lie. And this will actually be the back, but when you turn it over, the front's going to be just pretty much the exact same. So okay, so I've got enough glue all over. I'm going to take my A2 panel here, kind of center it. I just want to make sure that there's colored cardstock covering every portion of that A2 panel. I don't want any of that white showing. And then I'm going to take something weighted. This is actually my platform for my die cutting machine, and just rest it on top while that dries and set that aside. Now I'm going to take another A2 panel and several white scraps. These were all cut using the A2 nested dome die set. I'm going to organize them here a little bit and separate them out and make 3 complete sets. So I'm just doing this so I can make sure I find the largest all the way down to the smallest, and make sure I have a dome for each size. And once I get this all organized and I have 3 full sets, I'm now going to separate each size into 5 piles. And then I'll start reconstructing this, or creating my second background for my second card. You can kind of see here how I'm arranging them. That's kind of how they're going to be laid out onto the card. So now I'm separating out the largest ones, and I'll continue this till I have each one of the domes, each one of the 5 domes separated. Now I'm just using some glue, and I'm going to stick them down. I'm starting with the largest domes here, and I'm just going to glue the 3 largest ones in place. And I want them to touch, and it kind of makes like a little triangle in the center. I'm not trying to get it absolutely perfect, just eyeballing it here. And now I'm going to continue on gluing in each of the other arches in descending order. I'm going to go ahead and cut here and to the end where I'm finishing up with the very last arch or dome. I can't decide what to call them because they look like arches, but they were made with the dome die set. So I'm finished now with this background. I'm going to hold it up to the camera so you can see. I will obviously have to do some trimming on both of these, and the first background is dry enough now that I can remove the weight and start trimming. So I'm just going to use a pair of scissors. You definitely want something with a long blade, not any of ones with really short blade. It just works better. I'm just going to hold the blade along the edge of the card panel and just trim off the excess. Now you could definitely use a paper trimmer if you wanted to, but I found that the bulk of all these layers made it a little tricky for me to use mine, so I opted for the scissors. So it has a really cool effect, especially once you trim all the edges off. It has this really neat spiral look. I think it's a really fun background and really easy, simple to create, really. And now we're just going to trim off the excess here of the white overhang dome pieces. And then this panel will be done as well. And then we have two backgrounds that we made with the scraps from last week's project, which is pretty cool, especially since there were lots of scraps. So I always try to use my scraps whenever I can. So more scraps now. So these were left when I trimmed off the colored domes off the cards from last week, and I'm going to use these scraps now to create a rainbow again. I'm going to just kind of trim them down so I have just strips of paper here. And now that I have all the strips, I'm going to start to adhere them down to onto this scrap of white cardstock. So I am going to adhere them in rainbow order again, starting with the pink, and then I'll move to the red, yellow, then green, and then blue. Just using some glue that it's actually Mod Podge matte in a fine tip application bottle to adhere these down. Go ahead and cut it ahead here, and I'm going to adhere my last strip. I'm just going to end with one more pink because I need a little bit extra to make sure I have enough coverage for that heart. So now I'm going to go and stamp on top of this rainbow paper that I created with my strips of scrap colored cardstock. I'm going to use my Misty here just so I have the opportunity or a chance to stamp this image a couple of times just in case of the texture from the strips. This way I make sure I can have nice clear image. I'm going to ink it up here in Memento Tuxedo Black and then just stamp it here. And I actually got a really good image the first time. So now I'm going to take the matching die, the Congrats, this is actually that heart balloon that's in the Congrats die set, and cut out that heart balloon. So now I have this really pretty rainbow balloon with the same colored cardstocks that I used for the background panel. So that's kind of nice. So I'm ready to move on to my sentiment. Now this is the Hooray stamp set. I'm going to pull off the Hooray sentiment. It actually is in two parts here, so I'm going to put them together and then kind of center them at the base of the a piece of black cardstock. I'm going to ink it up in Versamark ink, and then I will pour on some white embossing powder. And of course heat set this with my heat gun. Now that I'm going to trim that and move on to some of the images that I'm going to have on my card. So I just stamped this girl twice because I'm going to have her on both cards. This girl's from the Hooray stamp set, and I'm coloring her in with some of my alcohol markers. I'm going to use some of my Copics as well as my Ohuhu markers to color in this girl. And I'm going to meet you guys at the end. So I'm just about done with the girl. I'm just going to add a little bit more color to her cheeks, and I'm finished. I'll do the other girl exactly the same. Now I'm ready to adhere these panels onto my A2 card bases, the A2 top folding card base, white card bases made out of 110-pound white cardstock. I'm going to glue both of them on just using that Mod Podge adhesive. I like liquid adhesive for this because then I can kind of wiggle them and make sure I get them right exactly centered onto the card base. I've already added some foam tape to the back side of the girl and to the rainbow heart balloon. Now I'm going to cut some twine and tie that around the base of the balloon. I found that it was a little bit easier to kind of start my knot off of the balloon and then tighten it around the base of the balloon, and that just made it a lot easier. So, and I also die cut, you can kind of see it there, I just picked it up, a vellum balloon with the heart balloon die. And now that I've got the twine tied around both of them, I'm just going to adhere my girls down. I've already peeled the backing off of the foam tape, and I'm going to kind of position the balloon where I want it to go. I'm going to grab my adhesive. I'm going to put a tiny dot behind the twine there to hold that vellum balloon down. That's a little trickier because I don't want the glue to be seen, so I'm going to do it behind that twine to hide it, and then put a tiny bit of that adhesive on her hand so she looks like she's holding the balloon string. And then on the rainbow heart balloon, I've actually already added some foam tape, and I'm just going to use the foam tape to hold down that balloon. So I'll just peel off the backing here once I'm done kind of fine-tuning that vellum balloon. So just peel off the backing there and kind of stick it. And again, I will use a little bit of the liquid adhesive to adhere the balloon string to her hand. And I'm just trimming off the excess of the twine. I'm going to put an acrylic block on top of the vellum one just to hold that down while that dries. So I'm going to go ahead and cut some foam tape and add it to the back of both of my sentiments, and then I will just adhere them directly underneath the girl. I really like how these cards turned out. I especially love that I was able to use my scraps from last week. I think they're a great example of one, how you can use your scraps, but also different ideas for backgrounds. Instead of just the ink smushing or blending, this is a fun way to add some color or even texture, as in the white card, to your backgrounds, just to add some more interest. I hope you guys enjoyed my video today. If you want any more information on the products I use, please visit waffleflower.com, and you can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook for more creative ideas. Thanks for watching.